It's time now for a look at the latest in local news. In the news, the Jesup City Commissioners met Tuesday for their first meeting of the new year 2024. After a 90-minute executive session, the City Council and Mayor Ralph Hickox vote to remove Rose Marcus as City Manager. New Commissioner Jonathan McCullough made the motion. It was seconded by Mike Deal. The vote 3-3, with the Mayor Ralph Hickox having to cast a decisive vote. They also vote 5-1 to name Nick Ellis the interim City Manager. We start with the motion and vote to remove the City Manager.
Somebody entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that effective immediately, Ms. Rose Marcus be removed from her position as city manager, and as per her contract of employment, she retained her employment with the city at a position to be determined at a later date.
We got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
That's second.
Got a motion by Commissioner McCullough, second by Commissioner Deal. Any discussion?
I just say this is, I'm sorry that it's come to this. It's a very sad night. This but I can't support this right now. I haven't heard, I've heard troubling things, but I just can't, myself, I can't go with
Any further discussion? Clarification, the yes vote indicates that we'll be moving the city manager as from her position and returning her back to her previous pay grade and previous classification. The no vote would be staying from that. Find that. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Commissioner Schumann? No. Commissioner Cockfield?
No.
Commissioner McCullough?
Yes.
Commissioner Deal?
Yes.
Commissioner Harvey?
No. It's a 3-3 vote. I'm going to cast a decided decision. I vote to remove Ms. Rose from her position. I'll entertain another motion.
I'd like to make a motion at this time.
Can you explain what's going on here?
And we're in the middle of the meeting, please. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion at this time that we appoint Nick Ellis as the interim city manager.
Got a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
I got a motion from Commissioner McCullough to second from Commissioner Cockfield to appoint Mr. Nick Ellis as the interim. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Schumann? Yes. Commissioner Cockfield?
Yes.
Commissioner McCullough?
Yes.
Commissioner Deal?
No, and I'd like to clarify that. Love him to death, but I don't think he's quite ready.
Commissioner Harvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Morgan?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1. To finish off our agenda,
Once again, all three new commissioners vote to remove Rose Marcus. The three returning commissioners vote not to. Tim Cockfield called it a sad day for the city of Jesup and thanked Rose Marcus for her service, calling her a personal and professional friend. Councilman Bill Harvey said he echoed what Tim Cockfield said. Once again, the mayor of Jesup, beginning the new year, once again casting a decisive vote, something he did quite a bit the past couple of years. Once again, the mayor only votes in the city council in Jesup in case of a tie, and the two previous mayors, Herb Shaw and David Earl Keith, voted just maybe one time in 20 years to cast a decisive vote. Hickox has voted at least 6 times since becoming mayor of Jesup. Here was the mayor talking about why he cast a decisive vote.
Ralph Hickox, City Manager Rose Marcus, terminated tonight. You cast a decisive vote. Tell us why you decided to vote that way.
Well, let me correct. It wasn't a vote for termination. It was a vote to remove her as city manager. She will, at her choice, she'll be, she has a time to retire. But if she stays on, she has a right to stay on in her former pay grade, former classification, not necessarily the same job. So she's not terminated. She's just removed as city manager.
City manager, what I meant.
Yes, she's removed as city manager, yes.
Well, removed, terminated, well,
yes,
whichever way you want to use it. But you cast a decisive vote. This was pretty much what the election was all about. The 3 police officers not happy at the way Perry Morgan was treated. I mean, we go back to the Butch and Bob show of Perry Morgan. He pretty much laid it out. So anybody paying attention, this was coming, but surprising that it takes place in the first meeting. But like I said, it came down to your vote, so you had to decide that, you've been here longer than anybody, the 3, so just curious why you thought this was the necessary move.
I felt like the city needed to move forward. I didn't feel like we was going in the right direction. We had a lot of discontentment, and the people are ready for, we looked bad quite a few times. That would Perry, everything he said that I know was true. And, it made us look bad. And we just needed different leadership, different direction. I think the people spoke to that in the election.
And Nick Ellis is the interim. You think he'll apply for the full time without?
I'm sure he will, but there'll be others. Yes. So he's the interim. We will have a process, and we will weigh out everybody equally so he's not guaranteed a job. I mean, I got a lot of comps in Dick, but we're going to look at everybody equally so nobody will have a leg up. We're going to try to find the right person that we believe, if that's Nick, if that's someone else, the right person that's going to help lead the city forward, that can galvanize our departments together to help us put out the best services for our people, to give a good appearance for the city. That's what we're after. And I just don't feel like that's what's been going on for the last 2 years. And anybody's followed the news knows what I'm saying with that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Once again, those are the comments of Jesup Mayor Ralph Hickox. We'll be back with more of this story in the council meeting after these commercial messages, so please stay tuned. In other news, we continue with more from Tuesday's city meeting. The new business item was tabled. It was an approval of a transitional home at 197 Conway Drive. Mayor Ralph Hickox says this has not been properly advertised, has not been attempted to be rezoned. He says the city council cannot take any action at this time on this issue. Also, the board voted to go with First Horizon Bank and put the money for the ladder truck in a 12-month CD, keeping the money in Jesup. The vote 5-1 with Tim Cockfield voting no. We'll have more on this next week, as it was a discussion in which Tim Cockfield once again says that this is the first and the beginning of the end of the ladder truck purchase for the city of Jesup. Mike Deal stated in the conversation that 75 to 80% of the people he talked to during the campaign told him that they thought the money should be spent elsewhere. Again, more on this discussion next week. Here on the local news, you'll hear Commissioner Pam Schuman saying that the decision to purchase the ladder truck has already been made, and the city is moving forward to purchase that ladder truck. Once again, the big news, the city votes 4-3 with the mayor casting the decisive tie-breaking vote to remove Rose Marcus as city manager, and they vote 5-1 to put in as interim city manager Nick Ellis. Should be noted that when Rose Marcus was hired as city manager, it was against the recommendation of the firm that was hired by the city to conduct the search for a city manager, and the city paid that company $20,000. WIFO-FM has reported several times that company told the city council, in their opinion, that Rose Marcus was not qualified to handle the city manager position, but the council went against that recommendation and hired Rose Marcus anyway, basically wasting $20,000 of taxpayers' money. They could have bypassed the company altogether and hired Rose Marcus, as she was already employed by the city. It wasn't long after Rose Marcus was hired that police chief at the time, Perry Morgan, surprised the city council and the city of Jesup and handed in his resignation as police chief, and shortly after that announced his candidacy for city commissioner. Perry Morgan came on the Butch and Bob show and has set a record number of hits after it was broadcast live, and in that interview laid out his dealings with the city manager and how he felt he was treated. So it comes as no surprise with Perry Morgan and former police officer Jonathan McCullough and former police chief and former city manager Mike Deal all running for city commissioner, that this termination was coming. As the old saying goes, elections have consequences, and the past city election was about one major issue, and that was the city manager. Once again, the vote comes in the first meeting of the year 2024, and Mayor Ralph Hickox cast a decisive vote, and Rose Marcus retains a position with the city, and Nick Ellis steps in as interim city manager. We'll come back with a final news note after this word from our sponsor or the commercial messages, so please stay tuned. Final note in news, the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce held its annual Eggs and Issues breakfast Thursday morning at Coastal Pines Technical College. On hand, Wayne County's local legislators to preview the upcoming legislative session, which begins on January the 8th. WIFO-FM had a chance to talk with the representatives, and we will bring you their comments today and next week here on the local news. Today we begin with State Senator Blake Tillery.
State Senator Blake Tillery at the Eggs and Issues Breakfast. You're the man with the budget. The good news, there's some money. If the governor's trying to give it back to the people, we'll start with that.
Yeah, I guess the bad news is it came out of taxpayer pockets. We're just going to try to do everything we can to get it back in those pockets. The one thing I want to make sure that we always remember at the state level is we're not creating any widgets. We're not selling any goods. We get our money from taxpayers, and if we have a surplus, we need to return it to the taxpayers.
The one thing they have to do during the General Assembly is pass the budget. So what's the budget look like this year?
Well, I think it's going to pass. I put my odds on that one. But we've seen record high inflation. It's probably around 20%, as we talked about here. So we're going to have increasing costs, whether it be asphalt for roads or it be employees that we have to have at the Department of Juvenile Justice and Department of Corrections. So there will be some increased costs, I'm sure, but there should be enough that we are able to return a substantial portion to the taxpayers. I'm going to focus on doing that.
As I mentioned with Stephen Meeks, this is a political year, a lot of political maneuvering going on with a lot of people up there looking to seek higher office. Will that get in the way of the governing?
You never know. I guess it could. When my dad told me that if you're wanting a new job, the best way to get that is to make sure you're doing your current job well. So I hope that our colleagues take that to heart, and I'm sure they will.
What's your overall view of the state economically? Like I said, you're talking about economic growth is doing well. So
the state's in great position. The credit for that has to go to Governor Brian Kemp. Steady hand, making hard decisions that weren't unpopular at the time. Remember, we were being encouraged to not reopen, and he said, no, small businesses are going to close if we don't. 3 years later, you see he made the right decision. There's a lot of interest in Georgia, and we just got to make sure that while that interest is coming, that we're making decisions that are smart for the folks who've lived here their whole life, 11 million people that we represent.
People understand you get a wide area to cover, a lot of counties in the state of Georgia that you represent.
Yeah, McRae to roughly almost Hinesville, and then down to Jesup and over to Douglas. So big area, but great people, and I'm honored to be able to represent them.
As you mentioned, today is your 8th year, so
it's hard to believe, isn't it?
Time flies.
Hard to believe. I think we started in this room in 2016, so wow.
Well, congrats, and hopefully we'll have Tuesday's Artillery again. Look forward to hearing from you from the session.
Of course. Thank y'all for letting me do it.
Okay. Always good to see you, Blake.
You too.
Once again, those comments of State Senator Blake Tillery. Once again, during the legislative session, we'll be checking in with our legislators from Atlanta, with Mondays with State Representative Stephen Meeks, Tuesdays with State Senator Blake Tillery, and Wednesday with State Representative Buddy DeLoach. We'll hear from both Buddy DeLoach and Stephen Meeks next week here on the local news. Chamber's next big event is a Lunch and Learn event set for Tuesday, January 16th at the First Baptist Social Hall entitled Cybersecurity Part 1. The time will be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you need more information on that event, simply contact the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce at 912-427-2028. That's going to do it for latest in local news. Sports coming your way in a few minutes. Bob Morgan saying have a great day.